Chapter 63. Kelly stood in the cargo bay, her nerves itching for some action despite the pain in her chest. It was getting better in a hurry, but her breath was still difficult to catch. Noble had cut the grav plate power, and the sled, a jerry-rigged contraption the engineer had hurriedly fabricated, floated a few centimeters above the deck. "Ready, Carb?" Kelly asked.
"Hi, boss. Let's do this."
The cargo bay doors opened, excess atmosphere streaming out of the bay in a rush, carrying particles of Atmos steel and fabrication detritus with it. The powerful lights lanced through the dark rectangle of space, and Kelly caught a glimpse of the approaching SV-52. Talby was bringing the craft in too fast.
"It's going to hit!"
Carb yelled. Kelly opened her mouth to reply when a yellow and orange flare erupted from the bow. The SV-52's speed disappeared in an instant, leaving it floating before them like a ghost. "Damn, he's good," Kelly muttered. She pulled on her tether to make sure it was attached. The resistance felt reassuring. She took in a deep breath. "Go," she said in an exhale. The two Marines used their suit thrusters to pull the sled out of the cargo bay. It took longer than she liked, but 10 seconds later, they were clear and floating above the SV-52. Wint and Murdoch had already cut their maglocks and drifted aft.
"Hey, Calimora,"
Wint said.
"We'll get it out of the net and bring it to you." "Now that's service,"
Carb said. Kelly ignored the chatter and looked aft. A little more than 90 meters behind them, a cluster of horrible-looking things had wrapped themselves into a misshapen ball. They pulsed with alien energy, their limbs occasionally flicking outward and slowly traveling back in. The life forms looked much more terrifying than anything they'd seen aboard Mira. And here they were, floating alongside the sled, rifles still clamped to their backs. If those things decided to attack, they'd only have a second or two to get loose from the sled and get a shot off. Maybe. More than likely, she thought, we'll just get eaten. Wint and Murdoch had reached the net and used their rad suit's thrusters to stay within a meter of the Atmos steel fiber cables surrounding the object. Talby opened the net, the cables spreading apart like a blossoming flower. The beacon, looking as strangely alien as it had in the images captured from Mira, floated away from them at less than half a meter per second. Wint and Murdoch's suit thrusters fired, and the two Marines maglocked themselves to the device before it could get further away.
"Okay, Corporal,"
Wint said.
"Got it."
"Good," she said. "Come to us and we'll come to you."
"Affirmative,"
Wint said. "Let's go, Carb," she said. They activated their thrusters in sequence to bring the sled below the SV-52 and toward the beacon. Wint and Murdoch, in turn, used their own thrusters to pull the beacon toward S&R Black and the sled. Kelly kept her eyes on the beacon and the two Nomrates, but she had to fight to keep her concentration and focus. The creatures wrapped around the dead skiff could move at any time and in any direction. While trying to perform this awkward docking mission, they'd have no time at all to prepare for an attack. And if the beacon decided to pulse, well, she didn't want to think about that. There'd be nothing for it. They'd all be flash-fried before they even realized what was going on. She just hoped the void was more kind. Each passing second lasted an eternity as she waited for the attack to come. By the time she and Carb rendezvoused with Wint and Murdoch, her jumpsuit clung to her body with sweaty dampness. When they were 1 meter away, Kelly and her squad mate halted their approach. Wint and Murdoch, awkwardly maglocked to the polyhedron, had difficulty in stabilizing the object before they crashed into the sled. At the last second before impact, Wint fired his suit thrusters and managed to give it just enough lift for the beacon to hover above the sled's surface.
"Lloyd, that was close,"
Wint said. Murdoch laughed wildly.
"Corporal, are you done trying to kill me today?"
Kelly smiled. "Day's not over yet. Let's maglock this thing to the sled and get it into Black's tow harness. Then we can get the fuck out of here."
"Hi, boss,"
Wint said. Murdoch detached from the beacon and Wint slowly dragged it down to the divot in the sled's thick Atmos steel. Her gloves shuddered when the alien thing settled into its cradle.
"Got it,"
Wint said. He maglocked his feet and attached the heavy Atmos steel restraint cables.
"Think I'm done, Corporal."
Kelly Mora to Noble.
"Go."
Kelly tried to keep the excitement down in her voice, but failed miserably. "Beacon's in the cradle. Do you have a green light?"
"Aye, Corporal."
Noble said.
"You're good to go."
"Acknowledged, sir." She switched to the squad channel and couldn't help but chuckle. "Lieutenant Talby, Carb and I are ready to take the sled to the harness."
"Copy,"
Talby said.
"Wint and Murdoch, climb back on board so we can provide support."
Wint and Murdoch pulled themselves along the tethers attached to the SV-52 and maglocked to the hull. Using their attitude thrusters, Kelly and Carb pulled the sled toward S&R Black's aft and the series of cables jutting down from the ship's belly.
Corporal, on your 9 o'clock,
Talby said. Acknowledged. Her HUD pulsed twice with red and she cursed.
Hey boss,
Carb asked on the squad channel.
you getting rat alerts?
Yeah, Kelly said. A little faster, maybe? The pair executed a parallel burn and reached the tail much faster than was safe. But she survived that goddamn haunted hulk of metal out there, and she sure as shit wasn't going to get vaporized by this fucking thing when they almost had it out of here. A grim smile lit her lips. Plus, I have to live long enough to kick Dickerson in the ass for disobeying an order. With Talby providing cover and bathing the net of thick cabling with the 52's bright lights, it took little time to move the beacon into position.
Shit.
Carb said. What?
The beacon,
She said.
If it blows, we don't want it pointed at the damn ship.
Void wept, Kelly Morris said. Look for a discolored side. They spun the beacon until they found what they thought was the beacon's barrel. But how would they know? The thing had been out in space for Void knew how many millennia. It could have been scarred at any time along its journey. Okay, she said. We got it pointed out.
You sure?
Carb asked, her voice nearly trembling. As sure as I can be. As soon as they had it inside the net opening, they used their attitude thrusters to drift away from the net and S&R Black's aft. Once they were clear, Noble activated the net. The flexible nanny cables form-fitted around the sled, tight enough to hold it in place, while the ship performed acceleration burns. Kelly had seen the nets before, and even trained with them once or twice, but this was the first time she'd seen one used for long-distance flights. They were nearly an AU from Pluto, and if they wanted to intercept Dickerson along the way, Black would definitely have to burn hot.
Noble to Cali Mora, I've got green. Get back aboard the ship. Talby? Aye. I'll cover them until we get the squad back inside.
Copy, Kelly Mora said. Let's go, Carb. They thrusted toward the starboard side. Floating beneath the ship's belly, she made out scars and nicks in the atmosteel. She idly wondered how many were from this mission and how many were the result of decades of service. Almost there, she said. 5 meters. 4. Then her eyes caught the sight of silvery liquid glazed across the final starboard side hull plate. The starfish had been here. Kelly Mora de Talby.
Go ahead, Corporal.
She and Carb had already popped out from beneath the ship and halted less than a meter from the cargo bay lip. Sir, I think one of our starfish friends has been here.
Found that silvery shit?
Aye, sir, Kelly said.
Acknowledged.
Talby said.
Went, Murdoch, triple time. Get in the cargo bay now.
Kelly and Carb mag-handed their way into the cargo bay, just as Went and Murdoch thrusted inside. When the pair of Marines neared the portside bulkhead, the two men activated their 4 thrusters and brought themselves to a reduced speed before colliding with the far bulkhead. Arm yourselves, Kelly yelled and pulled the rifle from her back. Carb did the same. Went recovered before Murdoch, flipping in the ZG and maglocking to the bulkhead with a single foot, leaving his hands free to grip and aim his rifle. Murdoch tried to follow his example, but ended up having to push himself to the floor before fumbling for his weapon. The 4 Marines stared at the darkness beyond the cargo bay door, rifles primed with tritium rounds. The SV-52 hung in space a few meters away, the cannon swinging to cover the ship's starboard belly. Copenhaver? Talby called out.
No contacts, sir,
she said. What you couldn't see wasn't necessarily to be feared, but it certainly made it difficult to focus on anything else. When you felt an ambush coming and knew a hostile was just around the corner, all of your attention honed in on the known or perceived threat rather than a larger one that could be your undoing. Kelly brought up the cam feeds for the SV-52 and quickly switched between the aft, port, and bow views before checking the overhead and keel. When she reached the keel cam, her breath hitched. Several large shapes, all but hidden in the ship's shadow, stealthily approached the SV-52. Brake! 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 Kelly yelled. The SV-52 took no more than a second before it shot forward from its present position and left the cargo bay's rectangular window into space. The moment it disappeared from view, she fired the first flechette. The round flew from the cargo bay and detonated a bare 5 meters from the ship's hull, sending tritium flechettes into the first of the starfish. 3 of its many arms exploded into black crumbs of carapace and alien innards. An arm reached the cargo bay's lip as one of the creatures attempted to enter the bay. Kelly didn't have to say a word. 4 rifles fired, and 4 flechette rounds struck the creature just as it pulled itself in. The force of the flechettes knocked its split and shattered remains back into space. Kelly moved forward, Carb on her 6 and to her left, the pair confidently mag-walking to the lip.
How many?
Carb asked. I saw 6, Kelly said. That's 2 down.
Corporal!
Copenhaver yelled.
1 kill, another injured and moving off.
Where are the last 2, Private? After a slight pause, Copenhaver groaned into the mic.
I've lost them, Corporal. Kelly Mora?
Talby called out.
Any sign?
She studied the shadowy Kuiper belt, looking for anything moving in relatively close proximity. Nothing. Far off in the distance, she could see the shapes of pinecone hordes, starfish, and whatever those new creatures were, but there was nothing she could find near them. No, sir. They may have retreated to the other side of the ship.
Copy,
Talby said.
Captain, what do you want us to do? Dock immediately. We can't waste any more time. Aye, sir. Kelly Mora, get your people out of the way. We're coming in.
Aye, sir. She switched to the squad channel. You heard the LT. Move your asses. While Murdoch and Went cleared the area reserved for the SV-52, she and Carb took positions on either side of the cargo bay door. If something else decided to pay a visit, she'd make sure it departed shy a few limbs. The SV-52 returned a few seconds later, and Talby expertly maneuvered it into place. Once he was clear of the door, it began to close. Neither Carb nor Kelly moved from their positions until the hatch finally shut, sealing them off from the vacuum of space and the hostiles outside. The grav plates hummed to life and atmosphere poured into the cargo bay. After a brief moment, her HUD finally announced it was safe to remove her helmet. Squad, get rearmed and provisioned. Be prepared to get out there again at a moment's notice.
Aye, boss.
Carb and Went said. Murdoch called her Corporal, opting for the less familiar address. Kelly smiled to herself. Before long, he'd be talking like the rest of them. Assuming he lived past this mission, that was. Shit, assuming any of us do.